what I started to discover was that my emotions were very, very powerful. And what I started to realize was, it was almost like we're programmed. Like a computer, we have a series of software that we have picked up from our experiences, and we just play those out as our patterns. And what happens is, when we experience something and we can't fully allow all the emotions of that experience, and this quite often happens when we're young and we don't know how to really fully think about something to deal with it fully, what we do is we could see it like we put those emotions in a box. But then what happens is that an event or an experience will arise on the outside, and our emotional response to it is not just related to that experience itself, but we also will pull in from the experiences that we've had before. So this is why you may suddenly explode about something that actually is quite minor. And what I realized was that in fully allowing emotions, that was where I found my release. So an event will happen, and if we think about it, analyze it, justify it, rationalize it, attempt to understand it with our thinking brain, that this gets us so far, but often what we're doing is we're actually putting a mask or a blanket, if you like, or we're shutting the lid on that box. Because the emotions start to arise, we don't want to be with the emotions because they're difficult, and actually we've learned not to be with these emotions. These were tricky, so we'll put them over here and we won't look at them. But the way out is to actually start to allow them. So the first thing to get is all emotions are fine. Every single emotion is absolutely fine. And we tend to have a sort of, happy emotions are fine, but sad emotions are not fine. But all emotions are fine. What's not fine is where they're not expressed appropriately. So anger is fine, sadness is fine. They're all just emotions. They're all just the flow of life. And when you can learn to flow with them and allow them, you too will come into the flow. And then nothing ever keeps you stuck, and nothing ever causes you a problem anymore, because you're just flowing with the moment. And there's a lovely saying, something like, this too will pass. I think it's a Zen saying, this too will pass. So that's a really lovely statement to remember. When you start to connect with those difficult emotions, when you start to connect with your sorrow, when you start to connect with your anger, that you just allow it as much as you can, and you remember that this too will pass. So this journey of the emotions is really coming into a real fluid place, a real allowing place. And I was thinking actually about water. And water is often linked with emotions, and I was thinking about all the different states that water can be in. So, we can have this raging waterfall, we can have a real gentle little stream, we can have a still mill pond, we can have a tsunami, all this different range. And that is what our emotions are like, aren't they? Sometimes they're gentle, and then sometimes they're like this raging tsunami that just, completely takes us over. So the raging tsunami actually arises because that is like you've been keeping it in a dam, because let's face it, we could dam that water as well, couldn't we? So those emotions that we dam them and we keep them stuck, and then all of a sudden they'll become so much that they just burst out. So what I found was, as I started to allow more and more, as I started to move beyond resisting my emotions and just be in the flow, everything became much gentler, everything became much more of a flow, everything became easier. Nothing came and really knocked me off my feet. It's been really quite beautiful. But in that, there is a depth. There is a depth of sorrow that we have within us that we need to connect with in order to be free. There is repressed anger in us that we need to connect with in order to unlock our creativity and our self-expression. And we need to give ourselves permission for that. So start very gently as you begin to be with your emotions. And everything is fine, everything goes emotions-wise, but what is not fine is to project that out onto someone else. So when we feel angry and then we yell at someone else, in worst-case scenarios where we feel angry and we physically abuse someone else, those things are not okay, those behaviours are not okay. But all the emotions themselves are okay, and we need to find safe ways to allow that.